My friend, welcome to the world's best kept secret podcast, a podcast that brings you exclusive interviews from experts all over the world with life-changing work that you didn't even know existed. I'm your host, Prima Jope, a partner for those that are ready to take their life-changing work in front of those whose life or business depends on it. Please follow or subscribe for more. Welcome back. Today, I have Christy in the studios. I have to call them studios until they become studios. So I think I am bringing that to light. What we're going to talk about is a very important yet overlooked principle in marriages and relationships. And that is the power of your wholeness in the relationship. And principle of ever since I looked at Chris's work, I really began to think like this. Everyone is whole and complete. And everything after that is a recalibration to the whole and complete you. And I stopped looking at it like we're broken and we need to be fixed, and started looking at the world more like I'm whole and complete, and everything else that is in my life that is not a definition of that needs to go or needs to somehow find its way back to wholeness. Today, I had someone on the show, another person on the show who was helping people move from feelings of contraction to feelings of expansion. So like depression, fear, anxiety, all of those things. And we talked about anger. And it was like moving from those feelings to joy, happiness, love, and all of those things. And so we talked about anger. And I was telling him that I never would ever be triggered ever in my life until I got married. And then my soulmate has a way of really getting me to my worst self. And we talked about that and realized that everything is information. Anger is information. Fear is information. Depression is information. Anxiety is information. And so what we ended up on my case is anger is information that they're my values that are being disrespected or stepped on. And so my body is getting angry to give me information that, hey, there's something important that he's not seeing or he doesn't know, and you need to tell him if you want to stay with him. He can't keep getting you angry, because anger means there's needs you need, there's values you have that are not being respected. And so anger is information that says, oh, okay, I really haven't told him about that. And so it's maybe information saying, sit with your spouse and let them kind of see what your values are and what your needs are. If you keep feeling angry, it means that they either don't know, which can be fixed, or they know and they're choosing not to give you what you need, which should also give you information to make a decision. And so I love to look at it like you're whole and complete, and you have these feelings to tell you that that is not in alignment with the you and complete that is present now in the moment. So frustration, sadness, fear, anxiety, all those are, it's like feedback looping back into your full self saying, hey, look here, that does not look like a whole and complete. So go fix that.
Yeah.
So I'm
an invitation. Yes. Yes, I love it.
I'm here with Chrissy and I'm excited because she's like, hey, go take care of your stuff. And you will find that when you do that, your partner will no longer be the person you're pointing a finger at.
Yeah.
She's been in the school of hard knocks, which means she's lived this. She's gone through the motions. She's gone through the tears, the frustrations, the divorce, everything in the middle. And she's bringing her lessons, her sweat, and everything there, and saying, I want to share this with people, because if people knew that it is the whole and complete you that needs to appear in their relationships, we would have less relationship drama. Because the last time we talked, we came to a conclusion that some people don't really deserve to be in your life. Yeah. If you were to be whole and complete in that relationship, that some people, the best, most loving thing you could do to them, with them, is not to be with them. And so I really love having this conversation, because it was a very good way that I thought she brought this insight together. Before we start pointing fingers, let's look at ours. Are we living in a whole and complete state? Are we bringing our best self to the relationship? Are we having our own soulmate relationship with ourselves? Are we in respect our soul and its desiring of being whole? If we're there, then everything can look different from that point in relationships. And so I want to bring Chrissy up. I don't even want to so much about everything else, but I want to have this conversation because I feel like it's going to be some empowering going back to people that are struggling in relationships, and you're kind of pointing at your spouse and going, they need to change that, and they need to change that, and really the answer is you just need to get yourself back to your whole and complete state. Yeah. Whatever is there that doesn't belong there needs to go.
Yeah, we gotta stop tolerating stuff that's not for us. I love what you said about those triggers. I always say that they're an invitation to look within because they're information. They're like and emotions in general too are like this inner barometer telling you like, hey, yes, more of this. This feels so good. This is for you. And the stuff that doesn't is an invitation to look within. What's coming up? Now, it's so tricky because we have not necessarily been taught to deal with that properly. And this is probably part of what you were speaking with your previous guest about. You have to allow yourself to feel what's there. You can't avoid it because then you're missing that invitation, that information, that opportunity to look within and see what's coming up for me to address, because I have space to address something. This is why it's coming up. And like you said, it's incongruent essentially with that whole and complete you that you already are. You don't have to become someone who's whole. You already are. You just forgotten. So operating from that place of wholeness, I love how you stated all of that, because it's absolutely just magic, and it allows your relationships to flow with ease and grace and acceptance and unconditional love. And who doesn't want all of that? Because that leads to your true safety and feeling of belonging, right?
Yeah. Before we even get there, because I'm just excited to keep going. First of all, welcome to the show.
Thank you. We dive right in here.
And second of all, let's go to the place where Chrissy didn't know that her whole and complete self existed, and she tolerated less, and she got angry and less happy, and she was like, no, this is it, I'm done, and had definitions about love and relationships, and now she's like, oh my god, I finally get this. Yeah, take us there. I'd love to go through your story because I learned so much listening to your story.
How much time do we have? No, I'm just kidding. I will keep it, keep to the important pieces of the story. I've actually been divorced twice, but I'm going to skip ahead to the second marriage. That is where I learned more of my lessons for sure. There was a number of years where I like to say that I suffered from what I call just a momitis. This was after having children. I sort of lost track of who I was outside of my roles of being a mother and a stay-at-home mom or a stay-at-home wife. And I really lost track of who I was, right? Like I had these labels. I was for sure in a lot of people's phones as, Jaden's mom. That's my oldest, right? So I'm not even me. I'm now just my children's mom out in the world. And so I really was like, who even am I anymore at this point? I don't totally know. Like who I was before being a mother, I couldn't go back to that. I didn't even want to go back to that, but it left me a little bit confused as to what I was here to do. Right. And not that being a mother wasn't enough, but I felt like there was more for me. That's the only way I can really explain. I felt this call to something more. And eventually I decided to answer the call, thank goodness, because it really shone some light on me. I had this sort of aha moment, like, oh my God, it's me. I've been spending all of this time wishing and hoping and praying for my partner to change and looking at, those things that I didn't like, the interactions that we had that I didn't like. And now some of them were really unhealthy. Some of them I shouldn't have tolerated. And I can see that now looking back. But when I was in it, I had all kinds of justifications, right? It makes sense. We're human. We're going to make mistakes. I'm very loving and tolerating and forgiving in that way. And I just think that because we're not broken, you know, that there's nothing innately wrong with us, but we do sometimes make choices that don't serve us. So anyways, I had spent all this time sort of waiting for him to change. You know, I wasn't feeling the love there. And I got to this point where I realized I'm the common denominator in every one of my problems. And I was like, oh, yikes, that's a lot. That's, you know, that's me. That's on me. And because I'm not one to slide into, and I have done this before, thankfully in this instance, it was brief. I was like, I could slide into the guilt and the shame about why did I put up with this? Why am I the problem? Why is it me? Wah, which is easy enough to know. And if we're humans, we've probably done that from time to time. I know I have. In this case, thankfully, when I realized like, oh my God, I am the common denominator in all of these problems, I also realized in that same moment that I'm also the solution. I'm literally the possibility, the solution that's in each and every one of these circumstances. And instead of tolerating things that didn't feel good, didn't feel aligned, tolerating, you know, poor communication and lack of connection and just two people who were not on the same page, really, when it came to anything, it felt like. And what I sort of realized through the self-discovery of who I am, which was a process that didn't happen overnight, but this aha awareness of like, oh my gosh, it's me, was huge. Because instead of looking at him, I started looking at myself. I started learning, who am I? What do I want? What is my purpose? What do I want to experience? And what I realized in that moment was I had been protecting, quote unquote, protecting my kids by staying in my marriage because I thought that was protecting them. But I realized that that actually wasn't protecting them. And I wasn't doing what I thought I was doing. I was actually teaching them how to pretend to be someone you're not. So people pleasing and wearing masks, not being authentic, you know, showing up, trying to be perfect, trying to manage other people's moods, but forgetting about my own, really looking at all of the external circumstances and missing the truth that I had everything that I was looking for already within me. It wasn't out there. It wasn't in someone else. It wasn't in the next purchase, which, you know, we all have our vices and we all have our coping mechanisms, right? I know we all do, whether that's sugar or shopping or sex or drugs or alcohol or whatever it is. My favorite poisons at the time when I was most trying to avoid and numb everything was a lot of Netflix, online shopping, and lots of wine. And so now I don't really do any of those things. The sex is still the sex is good now. The sex is good for me now. That's if anything, that's my quote unquote vice, but it's not really a vice anymore. With my ex, there wasn't that, so I had to go with the Netflix and the online shopping and things like that. But you know, we often have these coping mechanisms that stand in place that help us to navigate this, right? It's not because there's something wrong with you or you're a terrible person. You're actually just trying to avoid that discomfort. And that's very human. So welcome to being a human, right? However, we can choose to look at the things and learn and grow from them and free ourselves from those uncomfortable emotions, or we can try and resist and ignore them and they keep coming back. That's what I started to recognize, that the more I tried to avoid it, the more I literally took up running. I became a marathon and ultra marathon runner for a period of time because I was running away from what I thought was my relationship problems. I was really running away from myself. I didn't want to face the discomfort that was coming up within me. And so I know what it's like to want to avoid that discomfort. And I also know what it's like for that to keep coming back around and keep slapping you upside the head over and over and over. Like things aren't changing. It's like a Groundhog Day, same thing every morning. You know, you wake up anxious, overwhelmed. You haven't even started the day and you're already feeling like, oh my gosh, like this is not good. Like that is such a bad start to your day. And so when I started to make the shift, I started to realize, first of all, I didn't have to listen to all of these crazy thoughts in my head. Like there's lots of thoughts in there that I'm like, nope, don't like that one. And so, you know, we have more power than we often realize. It's just that we get into these ruts. And so, you know, after realizing I had spent too much time pointing my finger at him, I took personal responsibility. I really started to look at those triggers, look at those they're like activations or opportunities for you to see what's coming up for me. It is likely, like you said, some sort of unmet need arising for us to take note of. And the beautiful thing is when you, instead of avoid that with whatever avoidance tactics you're using, you start to actually look at it and welcome it, you get to learn about yourself. And this is an incredible gift, because guess what happens when you start to learn about those unmet needs? Now you can see possibilities and opportunities to get them met. Isn't that better than stuffing it away and pretending they don't exist? I mean, this is how we can find our true peace and freedom within. And the truth is, we don't need something outside of us or someone outside of us to meet those needs. Yes, I know people would be like everywhere, like, well, love with someone else is different than love by yourself. Sure, but it stems from the love that you have within. And if you can get to this space of unconditional love and acceptance for yourself, I'll tell you what, it will be absolute freaking magic when you meet someone else who sees things that same way, who has that unconditional love and acceptance for themselves. And now you have two people who know that they're whole coming together. Now there's no expectations that the other person's going to meet all your needs. There's no, assumptions that they're broken. It just is pure magic. You can let go of the judgments and you can just actually be in the experience as you're meant to be, wholly, completely, authentically yourself, showing up and living life with another human. And that is so much more than this whole idea of what I did last time, which was essentially a series of wearing masks, trying to pretend I was someone else, trying to keep up with society's expectations of what things should look like and what I'm supposed to be doing, and being a good girl and being nice and all of these things. They were causing me way too much internal incongruence, right? These triggers and these problems were coming up nonstop. So I did find the way to free myself. Thank goodness, because that was not a good time.
I do have a question from that. Can you talk more to what is it that I want to speak to women, because I feel like I get the women part. I don't know how much of the men I get, but I think I get the women part. What aren't women seeing that is causing them a lot of unhappiness in their marriage? Like, what is the thing that you wish everyone understood about getting what you want out of your relationships with your spouse or whatever?
I mean, I think the biggest thing, honestly, is that we often sit around and wait for things to happen instead of actually making them happen. And in that, we're not recognizing that we have the power to create our experience. And this isn't just in a relationship. This really applies to like all of your human experience. It can apply to your job or, your hobbies or anything else that you're interested in too. But when we are not taking action, and it can be for a number of reasons, it might not feel safe to. You might not have the skills yet to take the action that you think is required. You might even just be stuck in analysis paralysis. This happens to the best of us too, when we have all of these ideas, but we're not sure how to execute them. So sometimes it's just that we're not doing the things that we say we want to do, right? And we are often expecting other people or circumstances, but in this case, we're speaking about relationships. We're often waiting for our spouse to change before we decide we will change too, right? We're waiting for them to show up differently, and then we will change our response to them. But that is ultimately not going to get the results that you want. That's just not how that works, because guess what? They're waiting for you to change too, right? And now you're in years of couples therapy. All you do is complain about one another. You're not actually getting anywhere because you actually have to, go first. And by going first doesn't mean that you're just putting the other person ahead of you. That's actually not it at all. By going first, you are building a solid relationship with yourself so that all of this love and this peace and this joy and this happiness that you have within you, that's not out there in the world, you don't have to chase it anymore. You have instant access to it within. Now it can overflow. Now this abundance of love and acceptance and peace and joy can overflow. And guess how that impacts the people around you, right? It is like a change from the inside out. And it's not done in a way that is manipulating that change, which a lot of us have probably tried. I can say I have tried to be nice and do things to get a certain outcome from someone else. And there's always going to be a slight level of bitterness and resentment from that, because it wasn't, if you essentially manipulate someone into a response, it doesn't feel as good as if they chose it, right? If you convince someone to be with you, it doesn't feel as good as if they chose you, right? So taking responsibility for yourself, building this relationship with yourself allows you to be in this space where you're not convincing anyone. You don't have to effort and try to be someone that they like. You just get to be you. You know who you are, right? The more deeply you get to build this relationship with yourself, the more deeply you know who you are, which honestly is a lot more of an exercise of unlearning and stripping away that which you are not, right? So you can rediscover who you are, this whole self, right? Reintegrating, depending on which angle you're looking at it from, reintegrating some of those parts of us, maybe that we believe we have been separated from, or have been broken off, or have been damaged, or any of these things, but reintegrating them. There was an illusion. You're not separated. You were already whole, right? You're not broken. You're doing the best that you can with the resources and understanding you have at any point in time. And the beautiful thing about growth is that you get to witness that growth and how far you've come. And the troubling part can be if you look back and say, I could have, would have, should have done that differently. You beat yourself up over not making the choice that you now have the information for, but you didn't then, right? So compassion and grace is so crucial while building this relationship with yourself, and it will overflow. It will create the space for the most incredible, meaningful connections to take place with other people who are truly meant to be in your world. Instead of tolerating this person who just happens to be here, you can actually find, I'll say, like, the one, although I think there's more than the one. You're really the one that you're looking for at the end of the day. It's you. And when you find the one, you can make relationship work with an awful lot of people, and it'll make it easier to see who's for you and who's not for you. And all of that's okay, right? Just because it doesn't work out with someone doesn't mean that they're a bad person, you're a bad person. It just means it wasn't a fit. And yet we go through life with so much heartbreak because they didn't choose me. But it doesn't mean there's something wrong with you. We have to stop making it mean that there's anything wrong with us just because it wasn't aligned for us to have that relationship, or that relationship maybe ran its course. That, you realized this is no longer what I want. At the end of the day, permission slip to choose you, not in a self-centered way, but in an unconditionally loving yourself, because listen, you're the one that's going to be here with you this entire ride as a human. You're the one, you're it. So which version of the one are you going to be? Right? Because that is going to ripple out and make a big impact in the way you experience your life.
I like looking at all my life. I have always looked at rejection as protection. Yeah. And so if I'm rejected, I choose to say, oh, that's God's protection.
Yeah.
Could be a job, could be people that that I thought I would be with that I wasn't. Rejection, I just decided to say rejection is God's protection. This person is not good for me, and so God has closed the door, so I don't get in it.
Yeah.
And so I love what you're saying as well, which is stop looking for the one and become the one.
Yeah. You're it, baby. You're the magic. You've been looking for this magic outside of yourself. It's not out there. It's you, baby.
But I do want to ask you a question. Do you believe there is unconditional love?
I do. And I say that I do because I feel it myself. I create it myself. And I will also clarify here, because I know when people usually are like, no such thing, you can't have that because people will just treat you poorly. I will clarify that unconditional love comes with boundaries. It can't not, because unconditional love cannot be just for one side. Unconditional love, true unconditional pure love, has to accommodate everyone, not just you and the thing that you want, at the detriment of that person. That's not it. Right now we've lost the plot. Unconditional love doesn't mean you tolerate mistreatment because you just love them no matter what. It doesn't mean you don't have standards. It doesn't mean that you don't have preferred ways of being treated. It just means that now you have this clarity of what that is. And sometimes people need to be loved from afar, right? Sometimes they're not meant to be sitting at your inner circle table. They are meant to be loved from a distance. And in this sense, I think that unconditional love essentially means to say, I accept this person for who they are. They are also, God's child. They are also part of this human race. They are also experiencing this wild ride of this meat suit on the spinning rock in space. Like, what? Like, it's crazy. But we can just accept that someone's different from us, right? Like, literally, there's over 8.1 billion people on the planet. No one's like you. So as soon as we can stop expecting anyone else to be at all like us, listen, they've had, I don't know how many moments of experiences that we have each had up until this point in time, depending obviously how long you've been on the earth. That's a lot of different experiences. And so the best way to allow and love and accept someone is to actually just listen. Right? Let them tell you, where have they been? What have they been through? What have they experienced? What has brought them to this point? And I know people often say that they struggle with the concept of unconditional love outside of maybe your children. And I get that makes it trickier because, and I mean, not everybody unconditionally loves their children either, right? So that's maybe not even a good example for everyone. Because we do have expectations. We're human. We come here and we're like, no, I don't like this and I like this. And the more that we can get to know ourselves, it just becomes easier to interact with other people, right? Sometimes we don't know about a boundary until it's crossed. In fact, most of the time we don't know about the boundary until it's crossed or close to crossed. And then we're like, oh yeah, no, I need a boundary there. But how many of us actually set one next time? Right? We're not so good at that. We'll be like, oh, I didn't like that, but we don't do anything about it. And if we want to build to this experience of unconditional love, we have to do this self-exploratory work to figure out what does work for us and what doesn't work for us, and who we are and who we aren't, and where we end and where other people begin, because it allows us to have unconditional love while still having unconditional love for others, while still having it for ourselves. And this balance is what is so important. What is the most important piece of the unconditional love is it starts with you.
I will give you my version of that unconditional love, and you can tell me from your lens how you see it. I believe that there is conditions, like marriage is a condition. Okay, we're signing this thing, gonna be together forever. That's a condition. I also believe that, and my spouse knows, and he doesn't like the idea that I have conditions. But my first condition is you need to be interested in growing and becoming better. And you can't not grow. Yeah. That's a condition. Like, I expect him to grow. And I tell him all the time, like, dude, but he also loves growing endlessly. Like, he really like is into this growth and growth and growth. But like, I'm like, the day you stop growing is the day we have a problem. And he wants to say or show that he has unconditional love, but I don't know. I have unconditional love for you until you raise your finger and beat me. It's not happening. I have unconditional love for you until you break a non-negotiable. So for me, I don't know. I found peace to say the only unconditional love I have is unconditional love for myself. For the things that haven't gone wrong, for the messes I have done, I want to have empathy for myself and love me unconditionally. Now, I believe I might have the same for my babies, because I don't know, I just see they're little angels and maybe they need to be loved the same way. I imagine that I would have the same love and compassion for my children. But for like an adult, like a spouse, I like to enter these like, all right, this is unconditional love. However, let's remember that you're human beings, and this is what I expect. from you. Like, I expect you to keep growing. I expect you to respect my boundaries. I expect you to treat me with dignity the way we are doing now. I am signing up forever, but if it ever turns into abuse, I don't know that this forever is forever. And so
Yeah.
I'm quite okay to know that I am expected to not become something I wasn't. Like
Yeah.
just wake up and move from this good girl to the girl that sits in the band is stripping around. Like, how would possibly my husband give unconditional love to the person? Like, there has to be context within the unconditional love. And he really doesn't like the idea that I know that I have conditions. I'm like, dude, the day you stop growing is the day we have a problem. The day you lift your finger and try to beat me or abuse me, that's the day we have a problem. This is forever, don't get me wrong, but I expect you to understand and respect my boundaries. But we've never come to the same page with that. It's like, no, I'm in this forever. I'm like, yeah. But I have those buts, and it's like, why are you stuck in your butts? And I'm like, I don't know. I just love to know that this is forever, God willing. But that if it got to be what I didn't sign up for, and you decided you wanted to just sit in the corner and drink alcohol to death, I can guarantee you will have a problem. And he doesn't like it. So help me understand where I'm going wrong there. Because I don't know, that's my truth.
I completely understand your perspective. And I think a lot of people hold that one because I think, okay, so for me, how I sort of explain this is that we have to remember that unconditional love is for ourselves too, right? So staying and tolerating abuse or mistreatment or a relationship that's really holding you back is not loving to you. Okay.
Sure.
So unconditional love needs to be loving to both of you, not just to one of you. And I think that people intermingle the idea of the unconditional love with the boundaries in a weird way. So like, I like to kind of look at them as separate things. So you have boundaries for a good reason, right? That is to protect yourself. Not that they're walls, they're actually invitations into deeper connection with you, but they do serve as a protection mechanism in the case of mistreatment or abuse or things like that, for sure. If you're actually putting them into place. Hello, I've been there and haven't done it. So I know what happens when you don't enforce the boundary that you maybe ought to have for yourself, for love for yourself. But the unconditional love does not mean we remain in relationship with them. But it recognizes them as also human, because we are all connected. We're really all one. We're all the same energy. We are all on this planet together doing this thing. And none of us are separate from humanity. We're all part of one humanity. As they say, one love, right? And so when we love someone else, it doesn't mean we have to have dinner with them every night. We can love them while they're over there doing their life and making their choices, and that's okay. So I think just separating the relationship doesn't mean you have to stay in relationship with them, right? If it's really not a fit, that's okay. You can, like, I still have love for my ex. I don't want to be with him. We've both moved on at this point. I'm like 6 years in, blissfully partnered with my partner, and he's remarried, but he's still the father of my children. So I have this kind of love. It's not one that says, hey, let's be in relationship. Obviously, that became clear to me after I started to do this work on myself. I realized this is not a fit for me. The most loving thing that I can do for everybody, myself, my children, my ex, was for us to part ways. I mean, at least that's the perspective from which I felt it in that moment. Because I had boundaries that weren't respected. And it's partially my fault for being loosey-goosey with them. And I all of a sudden I remember this day, and I sort of talk about how, when you're driving home, sometimes you're just driving, you're in your head. So you're driving, the way home. So you don't really have to focus on it. You get home, you think like, I don't remember stopping at the stop sign or the red lights or anything. Like, I assume I did, because I think I got here, thank God, like I made it safe. So I must have, but I don't remember it. And that was sort of, I had this moment like, oh my gosh, like, how did we get here? Where things were so unhealthy. I was so lonely. And I just, like, I had lost who I was. And I just didn't know how I got to the point where what I had obviously tolerated to that point had allowed it to get to such a point where I was like, I can't do this anymore. Like, this just is not loving for me. And I had to stop, quote unquote, protecting my kids by staying in this relationship. And I needed to protect them by choosing me, by choosing to love myself, by choosing to go first, to choose a life that I actually wanted, instead of this one that I had been tolerating and putting up with and trying to make it work and justifying, right? I was arguing for my mediocre, not very happy relationship. And I was missing out on what was really possible. And I'll tell you what, from the flip side, now that I stayed in that for a long time, and listen, we leave when we're ready, right? You know, if you're questioning, I see you. I know that's such a hard place to be in. I'm not sure if I should stay or I should go, if there's something salvageable here or not. My greatest advice to you is to start working on that relationship with yourself, because that will give you that clarity, right? I know I spent a lot of time thinking like, I don't know if I should stay or should I go? Like, I don't know. And what gave me the clarity was me getting to know myself. It was building a relationship with myself, because then I knew who I was. And from that place, instead of being lost, like, I don't know who I am or what I want, like, I don't know what I'm here to do. Once I got clarity on myself, everything became very clear. It became, unfortunately, in my case, clear that that relationship wasn't a fit any longer, at least. It may never have been, but I got this clarity, right? Like, was not it. We were trying to make something work. Wasn't really working. We have these 3 beautiful children, so I would never, in a million years, I would never turn back time. It also taught me so much about myself. It pushed me to meet myself, really build this relationship with myself. And then it gave me the clarity to choose the life that I wanted to create. Instead of this one, I was kind of just like on autopilot going along for the ride. I actually get to choose every single day. And with my partner now, we're very intentional about what we create and the habits that we have and the ways that we interact. And listen, I have to credit my ex for some of that, because I learned what not to do, right? In relationship, not just with him, but in several past relationships, right? And that's, life is such a great teacher, and children are a next level teacher, I'll tell you what. But it's just fascinating. The more you get to know yourself, the more clear everything else is. And when it comes to the unconditional love, the more you get to know yourself, the more you get to have and be aware of your boundaries and set and uphold them, the more clear it is who needs to be loved from a distance, right? Not in your inner circle, still loved, because they're still human and they're still also miraculous and beautiful and perfectly imperfect, just like we are. They just see things very differently. And that means that we just maybe aren't meant to be best friends, right? And so we can love them from over there while holding our boundaries, which is then now loving for both of us. It's to say, I can't control that person. Lord knows I tried to control some people. I don't know about anybody else. I'm just full honesty over here. I really wanted my ex to be happy. I did everything in my power to try and make him happy, which we all know is a futile attempt. Anybody who's tried this knows, like, that don't work. Like, you cannot make someone happy who is committed to being unhappy. This happiness is an inside job. And sure, we might be happy when we have that new shopping order arrive, or, you know, we have a couple glasses of wine or whatever that might make us temporarily, quote unquote, happy. I'm not talking about that fleeting temporary happiness. I'm talking about like the joy and happiness within your heart. That is your intended state of being. It's your natural state of being. And then we go about doing all this stuff and we get in the way of it. And we actually cause ourselves suffering. So we forget that happiness and peace and love and joy are our intended state within us. We don't need to look out there.
They intended
we need to look in the right place.
Whole and the whole person, the wholeness, the full person that knows what they are designed for, what they can have. We wouldn't be unhappy if there wasn't a measure to, you know, like if we weren't whole and complete, we really wouldn't feel unhappy or whatever, because we wouldn't know better. We wouldn't
Yeah.
be frustrated
It's the
because we
human
wouldn't know better.
experience,
So I feel like there's a
right?
part of us which just knows. It just
Yeah.
knows the state of complete wholeness and always craves that and just runs away from things and circumstances and people that don't have that. And if you try to numb your wholeness and take in all things, eventually it will just, the soul will get tired of suffering and to say, all right, I've had enough. Like, you can't stay here because
Yeah.
now
This is
I am being fractured and I don't want that. Which brings me to the point where I know you help women kind of move from this place of, I am waiting for him to change, to, all right, I am now moving the focus to me and getting recalibrated and making sure that I am who I know I can be. And then we will see about him. But for now, I'm choosing to point the finger at me. I'm choosing to do the work. And if he comes along, that's cool. And if he doesn't, that's cool too. But at this
yeah.
point, I'm choosing me and I'm doing the work on me because I deserve to be my own
Yes.
best, whatever. Give me that
Best
process.
friend.
Like, how do we move from, oh, it needs to change to, he completely needs to stay there and I need to love him from a distance? Oh, I actually make things better by focusing on me.
I mean, you just got to try it on, right? Like I was to say, you got to try on new ideas. When you look at your life and you see this is not working, what I'm doing now is not working, you realize there's got to be something different. If you've been waiting, here's your sign. It's you, babe. It's you. It's all you. And you get to decide to focus on you. Permission slip to focus on you, to focus on building your relationship with yourself. I know couples therapy has you doing all kinds of relationshipy things, probably not working. Maybe if you're like me, you go there, it just end up being a bitch fest about each other. You both leave feeling exhausted with no progress. It's actually just emotional draining, but no actual movement forward. And so if you've been there and you're like, there's got to be a different way. Like, I don't know how to do this. The only way I can see is out. And I know because I've been there, felt that. Work on yourself because it will give you the confidence to make the right decision. It will give you the information that you need, right? To confidently choose, am I going to stay? Is this going to work? Or have I been tolerating a situation that really hasn't been aligned? All you need is the clarity. And the clarity, honestly, you can talk to your friends all day till you're blue in the face. You're the only one that knows what's right for you. You're the only one in your meat suit. You're the only one who can decipher what these emotions, what these triggers, what these activations, what these experiences are telling you. You're the only one. So if you're like me, complaining to your friends, they don't know. You're the only one who knows. You know, you can't ask someone else, should I stay or should I? No, no one knows. You're the only one who knows that answer. And the best way to get confident so that you can really stand behind your decision and know that you made the best decision that you could at the time is to get to know yourself and what it is that you want to create, who you are here to be, you know, the things that you are meant to experience. That is ultimately what this life is about. And I want to just also touch on briefly the concept of healing, because I look at it quite differently. A lot of people, like we talked about, have this approach of looking at healing like you're broken. There's something wrong with you. You need to be fixed. And I don't really look at healing like that because what we said before, I believe we're already whole. We are whole humans. We have everything that we need on board, self-equipped and all that, very self-resourced. We just don't recognize it. And so in order to shift this perspective, it's a decision to choose, to believe I am already whole, that I have everything that I need. And I know if you weren't brought up in a background where you were, you know, your worth was built up in any way, that could be really hard to believe that. So I invite you, if that's tricky to say, I'm already whole, I have everything I need. If that's tricky for you to say, if that brings up resistance or any sort of, you know, something within you, I just invite you to try on the idea. What if, even just for a moment, right? Sometimes we can just try on an idea, like to say, try it on, see if it fits. Imagine what would it be like if you were to believe that? And if it fits and you like it and it feels good, wear it for a while, right? And if it doesn't, take it off and try something else on. I don't proclaim to have all of the answers. I know that you have your answers. I just aim to point people at seeing the answers within themselves, right? Instead of searching for those answers in places where they're just very unlikely to find them, because I know because I looked there and they're not there. So invitation to try on the idea of being whole. What does that allow you to do? But what that allows me to do is operate from an unrestricted place. It allows me to see that I have infinite possibilities and opportunities before me. It allows me to look at growth as something expansive and exciting, and rather than feeling like there's something wrong with me and I have to continuously be better and be on this hamster wheel of personal development and betterment, right? Always trying to be the next best me. That's exhausting. What if you're already perfectly and perfectly whole? And then you still get to grow and evolve, because we do. But it just feels nicer to not have to do it from a place of brokenness or lack or scarcity or not enoughness or not good enough. You can come at it from this
more
place.
Empowering.
Yeah.
It's more empowering than I'm broken and I need to be fixed, and more like I'm whole, and whatever impurities are coming up, they need to go. They need to be resolved. They need to be taken care of. I'm pure and whole and divine, and whatever doesn't look like that, that needs to get taken care of. That needs to go. That needs to, yeah, I like that.
And it will, it will take care of itself a lot of the times when you shift into being this whole person, right? It's not, you don't have to become someone who is whole. You're already that. So all you have to do is essentially step into, remember, recognize, act as though, right, that you're whole. How would you behave differently? What choices would you make differently if you were operating from this perspective? So try it on, even if it feels stretchy for you. Just try on the idea, like if you were already whole today. Okay, so we'll even play in the world of if for a moment. You could imagine you're whole. How would you show up differently? What actions might you take? What decisions might you make? What response might you have to common scenarios in your life? How can you see that playing out differently? Our response to everything, we are creating so much more than we often realize. A lot of it's unconscious. It's very unintentional. We're not trying to, but if I tell my kids this often because it's relevant, and I have 4 teenage boys in this house, and so this is a message they need often. If you walk into a room ready for a fight, like, listen, you're walking in and you're like feisty and stuff, right? Guess what? You're probably gonna have
a fight.
You're gonna have a fight, right? Like, that is your expectation. That is what you're presenting. That's what you're bringing into the space. And so if in your marriage, you're expecting a fight, you might not come in with your dukes up, okay? Because it might not be a fist fight like it is maybe with your brothers. But in your marriage, if you're walking in, you're expecting a fight, like, chances are you're on edge, you're defensive, and you're probably already ready to defend yourself, even if there's nothing to defend against. And it creates a dynamic where this becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. Whereas what I've learned, if you can walk in with no expectations, without assumptions, without judgments, and this is easier said than done, it's a practice, okay? So again, we don't snap our fingers necessarily, and we have all of these skills. Some of them we have to just learn because we're humans. And if we haven't learned it before, we haven't been taught some of these things, it just takes a minute for us to adapt or, create new neural pathways so that this becomes our new norm. It's all possible. It just takes a little bit of intention. And so if you come in and you're like, oh, they did something that kind of brought something up in me, we are very quick to go into our assumptions and our judgments. Like, I can't believe he said that. Why is he thinking this? It's all our stories. So if we can just detach from those for a minute and instead get curious, oh, like, why did you do that? Like, I'll tell you one example where early on in my relationship with my current partner, he did something that was actually kind of sweet. But my initial response, having come out of this unhealthy relationship where there was like kind of always seemed like there was a problem when he did anything for me. It was like always resentful doing things for me. And so I immediately, that's the story. I was like, oh, like, my current partner is doing this thing. Immediately I went to like, oh, like he doesn't even think I'm competent to do this thing. Like unbelievable. Like what, I'll attitude up in my head. And then I was like, well, hold up. Because this is just my story. And so I asked him like, oh, like, how come you did that thing? And he's like, oh, like, I just thought it would be really helpful for you. And I'm like, so it was my story telling me that didn't think I was competent. Right. So that's why he was trying to help me. And as soon as I freed myself from that, I had the opportunity to see his real heart.
We'll be moving on the road, and my husband is like super protective. He wanna protect, provide everything. And so he will make sure he's holding my hand when we cross the road. He'll make sure he's telling me where to stand when the car is coming. And sometimes I'm like, dude, I crossed these roads before you came into my life. And sometimes I can catch myself going, like, give it a break. But he's really trying to be sweet and make sure that you're not knocked. But like, it took me so long to accept that it's not him thinking that I'm incapable. And more, he's just wanting to provide. He'll be like, no, this way. I'm like, why? It's like, no. If there's going to be someone who gets knocked, it's me. I'm like, okay. And then I'll be trying to cross the road, and then he'll hold me back, like, hold on. And there'll be a car here. The car's like, yeah, just wait. And I'm like, now I can't cross the road. And then there'll be a car coming, like we're going for a walk, and there's a car coming, and I'm thinking, oh, I'll just get to the pavement. I'll be like, no, get off the road. I'm like, how old am I? And I don't know, like this story is coming in my head, and I'm like, dude, how old am I? I've been living on my own. And
it's so funny.
I have to catch myself and go, yeah, give him the chance to do what he's trying to do. But every time I have to go, okay, Prima, it doesn't mean what you're saying. Get out of your head.
Yeah. It is a process to rewire those thought patterns because they're so ingrained, and they're just our story. They're just our story. They're not the reality. The reality is your husband is trying to protect you and keep you safe out of love. He is expressing love to you, and you're in this situation, right? If you're resistant, you're resisting his love, right? And we do that as humans. We get in a relationship and they're trying to show us love in their way, and we're automatically interpreting it in our way. And so there can be a mismatch, right? Which is why communication is really important so that you can
I'll tell you this one. So that was one day. I don't know, somebody was banging at some door, not even our door. And he says, get in the bathroom, hide. And I'm like, what? I'm in bed. He's like, get up, get to the bathroom, close the door. I'll let you know when to get out. And I'm like, in my head, I'm like, really? I don't even see the problem. And he's like, but I'm like, so I get to the bathroom, I close the door, I sit on the toilet, and I'm like, I can't live like this. And he's going around the house with, I don't know what tool he had, and he's moving and moving. And in my head, I'm thinking, really? There's even no one at the door. There's no danger whatsoever. And then he comes back like 10 minutes later and he's like, you're safe, there's no one there, come. I'm like, and I had to kind of just swallow that. And in that moment, I almost wanted to tell him, like, next time, be sure there's a real problem. But I was like, okay, this won't end well. And I was like, okay. I have to convince myself that this is an act of love. And I was like, no.
Yeah.
Talk about resisting and story.
It's definitely easy to see things from our perspective and miss what's really there. And so, ultimately, the reason that we do that is because we're looking in the wrong places. We're not looking right to the source of the love, which is within us. And if we can do that consistently, here's the thing. You can absolutely, quote unquote, heal in a relationship because it can help illuminate things for you. And if you are not ready to do that inner work, because relationships do take some effort, they require two people to show up, and it's just much easier if each of those people have done some of that work on their own, right? That they have and know themselves. Otherwise, you do end up in situations where you end up with a mismatch with someone who's not going the same direction as you. Maybe you're going on, two different tracks, and at first they were close enough together that it seemed like it could work. And then as time goes on, maybe you're going in separate tracks, you're growing in different directions, and that's all okay. But the more you know yourself, the more authentically you show up. I mean, not trying to pretend to be someone who you think they're going to like, right? Not trying to all of a sudden, oh, now you love golf. No, you hate golf. Don't pretend to love golf because they love golf. That, right? These things that you are pretending to be are the problem. And if you show up as fully and wholly authentically yourself, and I don't mean be a jerk, obviously, right? But you have to stop pretending to be someone else. Just be you. Be the loving, kind you that you are.
So
And the
Christy,
right person will just fit so easily. Like, it won't feel like you have to sacrifice anything. You won't feel like you're settling for anything. You won't feel like you have to give anything up. It will only feel like things are magnified and in a positive way for you. That's how you know it's the right fit. If you are like navigating and managing, you're like, well, they might change. Sis, they're not going to change. You cannot wait and expect someone else to change. That's not your business, first of all. They'll change if they want to change. But finding someone who has the same values, the same mindsets, the same, desire for growth, the same desire for maintaining the passion in your relationship. Look for these things. Too many people are looking for someone who's over 6 feet with a six-pack abs, and they're extremely disappointed when, like, that's not it. That has nothing to do with it. The connection you have, yes, there's a physical connection, and you should have a physical connection to an extent as well, but the way that they hold your heart, that's the true measure, right? And when you don't feel this unconditional love for yourself, you end up blocking out the reception, right? Because you don't even believe it exists. So how are you going to receive unconditional love when you actually think it's a fairy tale? So when you open yourself up, you build this unconditional love with yourself. Now you can see that there are other people that they feel the same way. They have the same relationship with themselves. They know who they are. They accept themselves. They're not trying to pretend to be anyone they're not. They're just real and raw, and they're authentic. And when you come together, now you've got these two people with this unconditional love. It's just like freaking overflowing. It's magic. It's pure magic. And it's just easier.
I want to take you back to a lot of women have been built, or I don't know, created. There's a lot of programming. There's a lot of patterns that say, oh, you have to be your best self, and you have to wear the pretty red dress, and you have to try in the 4-inch heels, and they don't know that makeup won't make it, and that eyelash won't make it. I don't know. I have friends who really try so hard. Like, I have a friend who tries so hard, and every time he gets in the relationship, she's there. And she's never figured out that it's been 7 or more. And so one day I sent her a message and I said, what is it about men that you find challenging? Because she's been married, I don't know, thrice, and has now dated 5 more people. And all of this time I've been there going, you need somebody. Because every time I look at her, I can see even what is wrong with me and her relationship. She is in the mentality of, what do I get? And so she marries men for the wallet. She marries men for the title, whoever they are. She marries men for the status. And I see the problem. You're not looking for a man who will love you and adore you. You're looking for a man who will spend some money. Yeah. And then I said, then you get disappointed when they don't have the love. But love wasn't the thing you were looking for to start with. And so I asked her, what is so disappointing about all the men that you've been in your life? Because they've been rich, they have titles, they have cars and toys, and that's what you want. So is it that you want love and you're choosing something? Like, what is the problem? And she's like, I've never looked at it like that. But I mean, a man is supposed to provide and protect. I'm like, yeah, but you don't get the man that is moving around and trying to date anyone because he has the money and expect him to have love.
Yeah.
Like the man who wants love and settlement and wants to protect a woman, that man is there. He may not have the flashy aeroplane, but he's there. And he wants to love and protect and be with someone who's looking for that. Now you want the man that thinks just because he has his cars and airplanes, he controls the world. And that man is going to see you as an object that can be swung around with money. And when he treats you like that, I don't know why that's so heartbreaking. It's like, but when I get in, I give them my love. And I'm like, yeah, but we don't turn around tables. We don't go to the thing and try to make it fit. And so I have failed to explain to her what the problem is. But I wanted to come and ask you this question. We have been told, programmed, conditioned to twist and mold ourselves to fit the definition of a good girl, a hot girl, whatever that is, and put on the other wig and I don't know, the next makeup and whatever the thing we've been told to do is. And we get these good whatever men who are looking for that. And now when we marry them, they probably don't see the original us as the real deal. So I want us to go through the process of getting clarity out of that or into that, and how we can move from tiptoeing around who we are to fully stepping into that place, which gives us the clarity to make the right decision, whether to stay or leave, but to do it in a way that is so loving and so soothing and so us that the next time we will do better. We will, because it's like people never learn.
It can feel like that. And honestly, I feel like when people see their patterns, first of all, they're like, oh my God, I've done it again. Right. And they tend to freak out like, oh, like, I can't believe I just do the same thing over and over. But I will invite you to recognize the fact that you're now seeing this pattern from a different perspective, and seeing it, having awareness that there is a pattern is a huge breakthrough. So don't stop there, right? Witnessing yourself in your pattern, having this awareness is the first step to actually changing it. So congratulations, you are in a new place. Now you can do things differently. And yes, you might struggle to do that. You might relapse. You might make mistakes. You might still repeat that pattern. But every single time you are aware of what you've done, you have more power to change it moving forward. You're right. There's so much conditioning growing up, expectations, not to mention the fact that women haven't had the ability to have their own finances for very, very long. We have a lot of generational stuff around this. We carry generational traumas in our DNA. So our grandparents couldn't have their own bank account. They literally needed to be married to a man to have a house, to have security, to have safety, to survive. This is the generational DNA that we have carried forward. And so, of course, it makes sense that we still live very much in a world where we as women feel the need, and we've been conditioned. It's been, it's been in the lessons out there in the world, like you're supposed to be a good girl and you're supposed to get married and have 2.5 kids and have a picket fence, right? And your man is supposed to be the provider. And then feminism came in and was like, oh, actually, women can do and have and be it all. And so instead of equalizing things, women went from here to like, now we're doing everything. We're trying to keep top of all. We're trying to have a job. We're trying to have a husband. We're having to have kids. We're trying to, manage all of these things. The expectations are off the charts. And yes, you can have it all, but probably not all at once. Sometimes things require some compromise in the timing. I don't want to say sacrifice, because I don't feel like we should have to sacrifice and give up those dreams that are really truly in our heart. But we do need to get clarity so we can see what it is that we truly want. A lot of this conditioning, just, thinking about your friend, you can see this conditioning, not to mention, okay, that we have the diet industry, and the anti-aging and the beauty industry, which are literally all telling us that we're all ugly, we all need to lose weight, that we're never going to be pretty enough, that we have to look like so-and-so supermodel on the front of the magazine, who, by the way, doesn't look like that. That's Photoshop. Okay. So we're aspiring to this impossible, young, never aging, perfectly thin, not an ounce of cellulite, not a single wrinkle, not a single gray hair. This is the messaging that we're being told. And so we believe, after hearing this messaging, which by the way is about lining their bottom line, it's not about you looking or feeling better. In fact, they serve you their pocketbook better by making you feel like crap. So it's a whole thing. It's about money. It's about the billions and billions and billions of dollars that they're making by making you feel like you're inferior, that you're not good enough, that you need to lose weight, that you need to be prettier, that you need to get better eyelashes, that you need, your hair isn't good the way it is. Like, it's just bullshit. I don't know if I'm allowed to swear on your show, but whoops, there it was. If we can let go of that conditioning, which doesn't serve us, because listen, again, 8.1 billion people, you're meant to look like you. You're not meant to look like the Photoshop supermodel. She doesn't either, because she doesn't, right? She doesn't even look like that. So why are we trying to aspire to look like that? It's just this idea that we will be single and alone and die alone as an old cat lady, that we've been sold if we don't do these things, right? That's how compelling their marketing message is. If we could get this compelling message of you're whole, you're beautiful, you're perfect, your age is a sign of wisdom. What if women could start to see the true power that we have, instead of being brainwashed by all this nonsense saying that we're not good enough? You're already good enough. And part of this good enough builds up our self-worth to see, not only am I good enough, but I'm worthy of having that love that I really want. Yes, I am worthy of having a provider and a protector. Absolutely, men do want to do that. That's like their natural desire. And we can show up and we can provide for and protect for ourselves nowadays too, right? So it's this interesting dynamic, the feminist movement piece of it. Now we can provide for ourselves. So I think we're tolerating less of that, the poor treatment as women. And I think women are, please God, women are starting to see we don't have to tolerate those kinds of relationships. We do deserve love. We do deserve unconditional love and acceptance, just as we are, not for a fake version of us that we've spent 4 hours putting together. I mean, I always think people talk about like, oh, like I don't really want to go somewhere where I'm going to have to eat because like they might see me eat and they might see my belly. Like, you want to make a relationship with this person? Don't you want to find out immediately if they're going to judge you for that so you can just peace out and be done with them? You're going to have to eat forever. Like, you can't avoid that. And if you are always having to be on in your relationship, having to look perfect and be not even human, be some sort of ideal perfection that's not you, it's going to be exhausting. And your own lack of authenticity will prevent you from having the experience that you want most, which is to feel unconditionally loved and accepted, to feel as though you belong, to feel as though you matter, to feel as though you are enough. By wearing masks and pretending to be someone else, you will never experience and receive that, because you are not creating the opportunity to. Right? You're showing up as someone else, even if they do love and accept you as this false version of you, this idealistic version that you're trying to portray. You'll still feel like, oh, but if they knew that I farted sometimes, they might not love me. And you get stuck in this trap, and you'll never actually experience the unconditional love that you deserve, that you already have within you. And so in order to avoid all of that tolerating, all of that, longing for and that not having, we've got to start looking in the right place to find what we're looking for. And that's within us, right? So it all just comes back to this relationship with yourself. When you know yourself well, you're going to know what is for you and what is not for you. It's going to just give you that clarity. Do I stay? Do I go? You'll just know what is correct for you, because there is no ultimate right or wrong. And people would argue with me about that too. We probably don't have time to have that argument, but everything is essentially neutral until you decide the meaning that it has. And so choose to just find what meaning you want to have. And then take that out, create the life and love that you want in the world. You're the only one that knows. So trust yourself, right? This is what this process of self-discovery is about. It's about starting to trust yourself, to believe in yourself, to build up your own inner love and worth and peace so much that all that comes to you is just a reflection back of more of that.
What is that step one of stepping into one's identity and creating that relationship with themselves? Where should we begin? Because I feel like there's a woman out there that has lived a life for a very long time.
Yeah.
She probably might lose everything she has if she tries to go back. But maybe there is a step one and a step two and a step three until there is enough clarity and confidence to say, oh my God, I can't believe that I can love who I am without filters, without. It's what I call fake authenticity. And I have seen people online with fake authenticity. And I've said, like, why would, like, where does this come from? And I can see the person is trying to be authentic, but they're not. Like, I'm like, this is not the authenticity. Like, it's like I can just tell by looking at the person that they're just playing some other version of themselves. So if a woman is even just trying, like, how do they begin to peel the first mask? Because I think people have like 10 masks going or 20 or 100. And every time they peel one, they feel like, oh my God, this is my authenticity. But it's not. Like, there is stuff to be peeled and taken off till we strip you naked. So what's that first layer of the onion that is trying to cover our wholeness that we need to remove until we are where we need to be, which is whole and complete?
Well, I think there's no linear answer because humans are not linear and we don't really operate in step 1, 2, 3, although that would be really nice. I have my signature create method, which is not linear. It's an acronym because I like acronyms and I like plays on words and stuff like that. And I really like alliteration, as you'll be able to tell. So my create method is, there are 6 pieces to this puzzle, but they are not step 1, step 2, step 3. So calibrate your consciousness, refine your routine, elevate your energy. You see the alliteration coming through. Activate your aligned life, tune into your true vision, and empower your elevated self. Ultimately, the big picture is about embodying the wisdom. And now, a lot of people who don't trust themselves get confused by the multiple voices in their head, right? And I hope you all know what I mean by that. Like, there's one voice that will say, I'm not good enough. And there's another voice that says, like, but maybe I deserve better, right? It's this like argument inside. It's like the two people on your shoulders, right? One is like telling you, like, you deserve more. You're amazing. You deserve the best life. And even if that voice is very small, it's still there if you have this little bit of hope, right? If say you're in your relationship, you're like, I don't know if I should stay or go. Part of you thinks maybe there's something better for you. Right? This is for me, like I said, there was this call. Like, I knew there was something more. I knew there was something better. I knew I was meant to do something great. And then there was this other voice saying, like, well, you might lose it all. You might be alone forever. You might die an old lonely cat lady. You might, all these horrible things that might happen. Right? And so the advice that I have to give, first of all, is number 1, get present. A lot of us are living in the past and the future, and we're not taking time to be present in the now moment. This is where your choice exists. This is where your power exists to be here now, choosing how you wish to respond, choosing the next action that you're going to take, choosing who you are going to be right now, choosing even the emotions that you feel. And the more that you can tap into those experiences that you want more of, say that's peace, the more you can tap into the experiential feeling, beingness of peace, the more likely you're going to be able to create that, right? And with a little bit of practice, you can actually start creating that feeling of peace on a whim. Even when chaos is all around you, you can find this grounded sense of inner peace just with a little bit of practice. The next piece is really being intentional, right? Doing that explorative work within yourself. This is what my methodology is about. It's about self-exploration. It's about self-discovery. It's about self-mastery. It's about building a foundational relationship with yourself so that you have clarity. You know what you want. You don't mess around with the things that aren't it, right? You just easily recognize, well, nope, Like, that's not for me. That's not for, ooh, this, yes, more of this, please. Gives you that clarity. And then you can start to see what is for you and what isn't for you. Makes decision-making and trusting yourself a whole lot easier when you have this basis of solid foundation with yourself. And then relationship magic has space to happen. What a wild ride we're on as humans.
Oh, there is a thing I wanted to talk about in relation to growth. And sometimes in finding yourself, you might lose the person. Sometimes in stepping into your calling, you might lose the person. Sometimes in activating your gifts and in really finding who you truly are, you might lose the person. But I can guarantee you, you will lose them anyway if you were to lose them. So I choose to lose them now. If they're to go and they don't want my growth and my gifts and where I'm going, it's fine. Let's make it quick.
Yeah. Right. It doesn't mean anything bad or wrong about either of you.
It's scary for someone who I don't know, at least for me, I was me when I got married. And so everything up to here is growth and my gifts and activating them. So I'm not going to change so much, but my path may look like something he doesn't recognize. But imagine if I had to have stiletto heels and a little dress and wigs, you know, and now I'm like bald head almost. That probably could scare him, but I don't know. I would probably invite you to find yourself, dare to find yourself, dare to step into that version that has now, and invite them in. Like you can invite them on the journey and say, you know, I'm going on this journey and I want to invite you on. And if it's the first time it's gonna ever see a bald head, let be it. I mean, I don't know.
Don't you want to find out sooner than later? Like, this is my thought process at this point. Like, if it's not going to work, like, just get me to the point immediately where I can see it's not going to work, because I don't want to waste my precious time trying to make something work that's not going to work. And when you come to this realization, which, like I say, becomes a lot easier when you have clarity about what it is, where you're going, what you want to create. Now you need to find someone who is going to the same place, right? In a nutshell, they don't have to be the same person, but they need to have the same general direction, the same values, the same ideals, the same mindsets in general. Now I can see this might fit. And then without attachment, right? Because the attachment actually causes all kinds of problems as well. Without attachment, we just explore day by day. If this is still awesome, great, we keep doing it. My partner and I decided very early on in our relationship, like I said, we're almost 6 years. We decided very early on that as long as we were having a great time together, we would just keep doing this. Like, we had no timeline. We had no like pressure. There was no expectations of anybody to be anyone they weren't. We just decided, hey, we like hanging out. Like, let's keep hanging out. And tomorrow we'll keep hanging out if it's still fun to hang out and we still like enjoy each other's company. And if at any point in life that changes, where we're not happy or we really want different things, or there's just some misalignment where it's not working, that we just agree the most loving thing that we could do in that situation would be to part ways, because life is short and we both genuinely want each other to have the most incredible life possible. So why would I attach my singular things to his happiness? I'm the only one responsible for my happiness. And when it comes to those two voices in your head, I wanted to add too, it's easy to tell which one is truth and which one is your ego trying to keep you safe. And the difference is love, right? Versus fear. Those fearful, negative, hurtful, limiting, worst case scenario type thoughts. You're not good enough. You're not whole. You're broke. Any of those are not truth. Those are your ego trying to protect you, keep you safe, keep you alive. In its kind of convoluted way. We don't have time to talk about ego today. But if you want discernment about what is your, a lot of people call it different things. It could be like your Christ consciousness, your God self, your high self, your highest, whatever you want to label it as. Even you could even call it, source, divine, all of it. Doesn't matter what word you use. Words are really limiting. That sense of your highest only speaks from love. And so if you want to build that discernment, you have to just start actually looking at your thoughts like the observer and say like, oh, that one, that worst case scenario, that I can't do it story, no, that's not coming from a place of love. That's coming from a place of fear, safety, protection that may have served me in the past. But if it's limiting me now, I need to try on something that's more loving, right? So I can shift to that loving belief that, like, this might be hard, but my heart wants me to do it. So I'll find a way, right? This might be tricky because I don't know how I'm going to make this happen, but I can take the first step, right? And I think that that's the key thing when it comes to anything, is the baby steps. What is the very first next step? That's why I say the very first next step would be like, just get present here and now. That's where your power is. And if you can start to learn to get present here and now as often as possible, the more opportunity you'll have to create, because you can't directly impact the future. Like the future will become now, right? And in that future, you'll have a choice still to show up how you're going to show up, or to not be in the present moment again, right? And we can't change the past, though we can change the stories that we're telling about our past, which is really powerful. But the more time we can spend present with ourselves, just in our beingness, the more we can get to know ourselves, and the more then we can create all of those experiences that we truly long for. And I think most of us long for, that deep unconditional love and acceptance, deep connection with another. It requires vulnerability and courage, potential for heartbreak, and it's all worth it for the experience that you're able to create. It's part of this human experience. We're so wonderfully complex that we can feel love and grief in the same moment. In fact, they're two sides of the same coin. We wouldn't even feel grief if we didn't have a deep love for the thing. We wouldn't feel its loss in that way. And so just to embrace and to be able to hold all of those experiences is the human experience itself. It's a beautiful adventure.
Wow. I want to recap kind of what I picked for myself is, until you're living as you, if you're tiptoeing around your life, that's not unconditional love for you. Like, if you are scared to be you, then that's really not love for you or the person that you're with. And one day or the other, you're going to have to face you.
Yeah.
And you may as well start doing it now, so you can probably spare some of the years ahead for you to start over again. And I do have one belief that if God has put something together, no one can cut it apart. Like, you can't grow yourself, discover your gift, tap into who you're meant to be, and lose the right person.
Right.
But sometimes, as for me, I'm really like a believer in God. Sometimes we're in these situations that God has not put together. And no matter what
something
we
better
do,
coming.
yeah,
right?
No matter what we do, that whatever thing you're in may not be the thing that is anointed by God. And at some point, you can drag it all you want. It probably is destined to end in the wrong place. And so, to Chris's point, self-awareness and deciding to build the relationship with yourself, I believe, is the best gift you can give yourself. Because what that ultimately allows you to do is it empowers you to make decisions from a place of love, a place of abundance. And if you were making decisions from a place of unconditional love, you would make the right choice. If you were making decisions from a place of fear, you'd make the wrong decision every day until you move that around. And a lot of this is really like, oh my God, if they knew who I was, if I grow, but they'll leave me. Like, that's fear. And I can guarantee you it's coming. They will leave you anyway. So you may as well.
Speed that up, because ain't nobody got time for that.
You may as well choose the path of growth and unconditional love for you and humanity. And you may as well allow yourself to evolve and become the person that you're meant to become, and make those decisions in the place of love. Because if the fear is the thing holding you where you are, it's coming for you. It's coming after you. Until it destroys you, it's not done. And so I would rather grow into a place of, how can I tap more into making decisions from a place of love, not a place of fear? Because whatever decision you make from a place of love, that's the right decision for you. And hopefully
And,
that's the right decision for those around you.
you can't really, like, the way I look at it is you're really never on the wrong path. You really can't make a terribly wrong fatal decision, because you can always learn from it, right? And every path, even if it's not the perfectly aligned one for you, has information for you, right? It has a redirection that can result in some unnecessary suffering as you get redirected. So the more that you can get to know what's right for you, the easier you can stay on the path where there's less resistance, where there's less suffering, where there's less pain, the path where you are living more in your intended state of being, love, peace, joy, happiness, as your base state. So that instead of bumbling along, complaining and blaming and wishing things were different and, doing the same things on autopilot, you actually get to choose. You actually see the choices and opportunities and possibilities in front of you of what you want to create, and you get to choose. Like, you actually get to show up and use your free will. Whereas when you're often buried in the suffering and the pain, it can be really hard, because when we're in survival mode, we don't see the possibilities and opportunities that exist. We just don't. Our judgment is clouded. Our critical thinking part of our brain actually shuts down so that we can focus on survival when we're in survival mode. And we just can't see. So if we're overwhelmed, we're super stressed out, we're living in a state of chronic stress or fatigue or illness or any of these things, chances are we're not seeing clearly. And that's not that there's, I'm not saying that there's anything bad or wrong with you for that. And just awareness is really important, right? If we're not seeing clearly, we don't know what we don't know. And so if we can start to clear the fog away, come into the present moment, even if it's for 3 seconds at a time, the more we practice this, the more space we create, the more we can get our critical thinking skills back on board, the more we can see what's available for us. And then we can go out and create.
If someone was thinking, Chris is the right person to hold my hand and take me from this darkness to the place where I understand who I am, have a relationship with myself, and can make decisions from a place of love, what do you have in the back for them? What are the containers you have for helping people, and how should they get started?
Yeah, I have a lot of different things. I want to share that I have a super fun sweary AF, so cursing. So if that's not your jam, steer clear of this one. But it's a very short meditation series, 5-minute meditations, just to help you come into the present moment so that you can start creating this space. So that's a freebie that I have available. So I will share the link with you, Prima, so that you can put that there for anybody who wants that first freebie step and to just step into my world a little bit. I also have courses online to help you build this relationship with yourself. I also do one-to-one mentorship. And I have a new book coming out this fall called Love Unstuck, which is going to be the ultimate guide of building love first within so that you can get unstuck in your relationships as well. So I have lots of different things. I am a very meet you where you're at kind of mentor. So, with my one-to-one, it's really designed to meet you right where you are today so that we can link arms and that you can build the skills. Do this self-excavation in a safe, non-judgmental, unconditionally loving space so that you can actually unpack those things that you may have been tucking away and hiding away in a place that actually allows you to do so with safety. And then build the skills, build the resources, become self-resourced so that you can go out there and create the life and love that makes you truly happy. So that is what you deserve.
We have different.
And you can find all the things on my website too. I also have my podcast. I should mention that too. I have my podcast, Create Your Happy. This latest season actually was speaking all about relationships. And so there's probably an episode on all of the 20-some subjects that we probably touched on today, or probably touched on in one of the episodes that I have 24 so far this season. And so that is also a really great free resource if you want to just hear a little bit more about what I'm about and the suggestions that I give.
I really love podcasts. Create Your Happy. Go listen to that. I love podcasts less than I love previews. So I would say go catch Christy on a podcast. And I would say look out for the links I'm going to put in the show notes and look for a link that allows you to sit on a call with her. We can learn all these things. We can be happy that we know them, but knowing them and being them is totally two
Oh,
different animals. And so what I'd
yep,
like to
that
encourage you
embodiment.
is, yeah, have her in your ears if you love her energy and what she's about. And as you drive from place to place, kind of have that episode going on that helps you really understand. Because I love Chris's approach. The solution to having a better marriage is to be a better you, is to
Yeah.
be whole and complete, is to fix your stuff. The moment you see yourself pointing at your partner, it means you've lost touch with what the problem is, because you are the person that has the power to
Yeah.
change and give yourself what you want. And so if you're pointing at your partner, really the problem is not them. They could stay who they are and you could just do your thing and get a better result because you decided to do the work. And that's empowering because you're not relying on another human being to change. Whether they change or not doesn't change your result because the focus is on the inside. And so I really like that principle. What I'd like to encourage you to do is get in the show notes and book a call, chat with Chrissy if she's the type of person for you, and kind of see like what's going to be the best way to move forward, because we can know the whole book. How many
Yeah.
people do you know that have amazing advice but they're not applying it themselves?
Yeah.
I've been there. I've been that person. And so don't be the person that knows everything but is doing nothing. That's not how it works.
That's the tricky thing, right? We have so much information at our fingertips. We know, and like this is such a common example. We know that if we want to feel healthier in our bodies, that we need to be aware of what we're eating and move our bodies, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like this is not crazy information. This is pretty common knowledge. We all know, but not very many of us do it consistently.
Yeah.
And sometimes we need someone in our life, not necessarily to tell us what to do, but to gently remind us to love ourselves in that best way, to take those actions that are most loving for ourselves, because sometimes our tendency is not to do that. And sometimes it can be just really helpful to have someone in our life, whether that's a relationship or a mentor or a trusted friend, to encourage you, because we all need a little bit more of that reminder of how loved we are and how much we are loved, so that we can make those loving choices, so that we can stay in that, higher state more often, that state of happiness, love, joy, peace. And yeah, that's what we deserve. And it's funny, I have an episode of the podcast called "You Don't Have a Relationship Problem, You Have an Identity Problem." Because it's not them, it's you. I mean, it can partially be them too. So don't get me wrong. If you're in an abusive situation, that's definitely them. You don't deserve that. And you get to decide how you respond. So you get to decide whether you continue to tolerate an unhappy or mediocre or terrible situation you don't deserve. So knowing you don't deserve it, you can choose differently. So this stepping into this identity of wholeness, which is really what I'm talking about when I say it's an identity problem, it's you don't recognize how amazing you are. Because if you did, if you knew you were unconditional love, you would never tolerate anything that does not serve that status of unconditional love.
I love this whole concept of you're whole and complete. And if you treated yourself like that, your partner would never be the problem, because you'd never let them treat you less than you are. You'd never be in an abusive relationship. You would never stand there and be mistreated. Your wholeness would never allow it. And so I think that we're here because the only problem happens when you think you're broken, when you think you're not good enough, when you think you're not deserving of them, when you think they will leave you. Okay. Like this is where the problem comes, when you're sold on the idea that you're not whole and complete. And so you need somebody to complete you. Like, yeah. So what I would like to kind of ask is the same thing I ask in every episode. Chris's work wouldn't exist if there wasn't anyone in the world that was crying for help. I can see 3 friends or whatever that I can share this with, and it would absolutely change their life. So I need to stop and think, who in the hands of who can this information be life transforming? Who are those friends of yours that are always telling you about their partner and how horrible their partner is and how they need to change and how, oh my God, he did this again? those are the people that need to hear this. They're always pointing a finger at the other person and how they need to change. And oh my God, it's been 5 years. I can't believe you're still doing the African thing.
Yeah.
Give it a pause and choose one person that you want to bless with this episode, because that's the biggest gesture that you can do to amplify the work that we're doing here. And if you're listening to this because somebody chose you and they shared this episode with you, do not break the string, because there's a string going. And the best way we can get Chris's message to move is if we identify one person that it would change their life and we move the message to them. That's really how we beat technology and the internet and algorithms and ads and all of those things. And that's how we roll on this podcast.
And that's how we're going to change the world, right? From the inside out, one beautiful human at a time, by sharing a message of love and hope.
Yes, absolutely. And yeah, if at all I picked anything, it is like you're whole and complete. You deserve love, peace, joy, happiness, and everything in between, because that's your birthright.
Yes, absolutely.
And to accept anything less than that is not unconditional love for yourself. So choose the path of self-awareness and choose the path of keeping this state alive, which really happens when you build this relationship with yourself to understand that you are whole and complete and nothing outside of that was meant ever for you in the first place. So choose love over fear. Choose unconditional love for yourself over anything else. Choose you. Choose to be the most valuable person in the equation. Choose to do the work. And everything else after that needs to be clear from there. Because sometimes people can't make their own decision because they are out of sync. And be the person who can make the decision out of love for that situation. Christy, what would you say are your parting words?
Anyone out there listening, I want you to know how loved you are, how worthy you are, how more than good enough that you are, that if there is even this little doubt of this little guy on your shoulders telling you that that's not true, that you will choose to listen to love, that you will choose to believe that you are enough just as you are. And go out there and create the love that you want for yourself, because you are the magic that you've been looking for.
Amazing. Do not forget that I really celebrate you all of the time, and I honor you for being here, for choosing self-awareness, for choosing to step into the person that you know you can be. That is the kind of person that listens to this podcast. You know you're made for more and you're ready to go all in and find the more. And so I see you, I celebrate you, and I want you to know that I am really very proud of you. I don't know that platform you're on. I don't know where your app is. Is it in the phone? Is it in the laptop? But when you use your app, you will be able to do things like follow, like subscribe, like rate, like review. Those are little things that make a whole difference for the platform. That is how we gather the souls that are supposed to be here. That is how we tell the world that there is a message here that could save their life. And so do not take those actions lightly. You go in there and do whatever you can. And I believe that you and I are the vessels for this message, and we will change the world one soul at a time. Have a beautiful day. And thanks for giving us the gifts of your time and attention. And Christy, thank you so much for pouring into this space. I can't thank you enough. So thank you.
Thank you for having this space, for creating this space, for creating awareness in the world of what's truly possible for people who are ready to answer that call. So thank you for, getting our voices out there. That is such an important job.
I feel honored. All I had to do was say yes to the calling on my life, and the how has never been mine. I've never made it my point. And
right. Yeah.
I am humbled that it's the space that it has become, and it's doing the work it's supposed to do. It's even just like more than I ever anticipated, ever hoped for, ever asked for. So I'm in true surrender for this work, and may it come to life, may it flourish. Thanks
Yeah.
again. Have a beautiful day, and I'll talk to you very soon. That is it, my friend. To listen to more exclusive interviews like this one, simply go to the World's Best Kept Secret podcast.com and select interviews based on preferred topic.